Thank you for staying with us and welcome to Sunrise. Is this the last one in the month of October?
Yes, it is.
And I'm Nell Taigwe and she's here. I told you. She's here.
Well, my name remains Alero Edu, even though he forgot to mention it.
Sorry.
Good to be with you. Well, you all know the reason why I haven't been here, but it's good to be here as usual because Sunrise is a part of my Saturday morning.
Yeah, so part of the reason was also going to happen again today, which is the road closure. Adeni area was closed for, they said, the final phase of repairs and that, so they're closing up that part completely so they can finalize work on that.
What does that mean for those using Third Mainland Bridge?
It just means that, again, there will be a little bit more stress moving along that axis. I don't know too much of the details, and I didn't really bother going to look at the details because I had an idea. Okay,
it looks like we're going to move to the other side now.
Oh, real soon.
So
even though I'm wondering if it's within the time frame of that movement. You know, you were supposed to, I think, 3 months on this side and 3 months on the other side. That's right. So I'm sure the producers will get those guys to come and give us an update. That's right. That's where I was going. Yes. Tell us again whether we can now move to the other side. And also update us on what the situation is. Yeah. But it's good. It's good. It's a good thing that these things are happening. I like when good things. What? I say it's a good thing that these things. What good? I didn't say what things are these that are good. Part of the things that are happening include waking up in the morning. Amen to that. Good, and you're breathing. Amen. And you're leading or you're being led. Amen. Whichever one be the case. Amen. These things are happening and we're learning every day. But and we're getting hunger is still there. And hunger does something to you. There's something that hunger does. There are two kinds of people that are hungry. There are those who are hungry and innovate. Okay. There are those who are hungry and go to hurt others. Okay. So which one would you choose to be? And it's a matter of choice. The truth is, hungry it's a matter of choice. Hungry in body and hungry in spirit. So if you choose to innovate, you find out that you're able to the truth is that, as someone said to me, it was actually someone that was talking to me, said, Nelta, if you're really hungry, you'll find out that nature itself will draw to you the resources you need because you made the choice to innovate. You made the choice not to hurt somebody else. But to go look for food. So it says, pursuit is the proof of desire. Pursuit. So you pursue, and then suddenly you find that things just fall into place. Now, someone might say to me, come on, some of us have been pursuing since and it's not happening. Well, the question is, in what direction are you pursuing? And do you even recognize the resources around you? Because I learn sometimes and we don't recognize them. We don't even see them. Yeah. Yeah. Like they say in Yoruba, what you're looking for in Sokoto is in Sokoto. That's what happens sometimes. But then what do we do? Do you now say because you're not seeing well, you now throw caution to the wind and look for who to blame? No, you keep looking. Because where your freedom stops is where the next man's own starts. So that you're hungry doesn't mean that you should go make somebody else unhappy. You can solve your problem without making anybody else unhappy. And you know the funny thing? Don't forget that the other man also has freedom. You know, the other side is also that other man you're trying to hurt might be the one that's been put there to help you. Whoa. Yeah, but there's something else I want to talk about, which is I want to talk about teamwork. Understanding the role of teamwork. Understanding. No, huh? We saw the benefit of teamwork in that, didn't we? Hello. I wasn't going to talk about that part of teamwork. I'm talking about that's teamwork at its best. Yeah, that's teamwork. Yeah. But you see, when you understand that you're part of a whole, it makes a huge difference. But that understanding, many times we throw caution to the wind and you think, I'm alone in this, nobody understands what I'm going through. But understand that you're not, the truth is that they say no tree makes a forest. So you need somebody else for you to even stand where you are standing. For instance, imagine that the ground, the earth, doesn't want to be part of the team. where would the tree stand?
Oh dear.
Where would the roots even be? Okay, you say, okay, no, in these days we're doing hydroponic agriculture. So you're planting inside of water with resources and all of that. Imagine that the water decides that, no, I don't want to be a part of this team. Where would you plant your roots in? So teamwork makes the difference. Understanding that okay, let me borrow from biology. If you take your hand and do this, and you hold it there, you see your fingers closing in. I mean, when someone told me that, I was like, ooh, this is... I was like, oh, nice. So my fingers are straight and I do this. My fingers are closing. And he said something. He said, you see, that's what happens when teams fail. So if you stop the flow of blood here, the fingers are closing up. So the hand that was going to be straight is no longer going to be straight again. So every joint, by reason of that which every joint is supplying, the body is functioning. If we do this, if we stop blood circulation here, what you have atrophy. I think, is it atrophy they call it?
Yep.
So you have that thing where your fingers begin to tingle because there's no flow of blood. That's what happens when
to die.
When teams don't work together. That's why football clubs lose games. That's why sports teams lose games, because one person is not exactly functioning in the role that they're supposed to function.
You are certainly being understood perfectly now that you've taken that analogy to football. I am sure that people are understanding you more.
No, but even when we talk about the body part, they will understand. Because when, I mean, as a child, we would play with rubber bands, and then you put it around your wrist. And that's right. You find out that your
fingers begin to tingle.
You're feeling funny, and then you're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
You now take out the band, and suddenly everything normalizes.
Yeah, I love the football analogy, because it's not one person that makes a football team.
Indeed.
No matter how good you are, oh man, I mean, you are the best footballer in the world, but you alone cannot make that team that will play 11 men and beat them.
You know, they say Pelé is the greatest footballer that ever lived.
He was still part of a team.
Exactly. Because no matter how many goals he scored, Pelé would always need someone to pass the ball.
Leave the ball too.
He always need someone to defend his own neck so that he doesn't need to go on, start running back to find out what's going on at my goal end.
And need somebody at the other goal end to prevent their balls from getting in. He couldn't have done everything by himself.
So you see, at the end of the day, it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Understanding that we're a team. Even the opponent's team is also a team, and you need them as part of your team, even though they're playing against you.
You have to play against someone. You got to play against someone. You can't play against yourself and win.
No.
That's not a win.
No, but the truth is that if you're playing against yourself, you win, but you win negatively.
If you call it win, yes. Okay.
Just continue sabotaging yourself. Imagine this. They tell you, oh, you're trying to lose weight, and they tell you, don't eat late at night, but you love eating late at night. Guess what happens? You're working against yourself. So at the end of the day, honestly, let's understand that life is incomplete without teams. We all need teams. We need somebody in our corner. You need someone in your life to be part of your team. The question is, do you know that you're part of someone's team?
Agba Jalingo posted something very early this morning about the protesters. No, I'm sorry, not the looters, and how government is appealing to them to return the things that they looted. And surprisingly, some of them are actually going to the designated centers
to return
and dropping the things that they looted. And my thoughts just went to, well, if these guys who stole cartons of Indomie and bags of rice are returning them, what about the guys who have stolen millions? Are they listening to this? I mean, try and return some of this. Because that's one of the reasons why we find ourselves in this pass. That so many are so hungry that they're prepared to actually come into your house and dispossess you of your belongings.
Because they feel that you're working against them. At the end of the day, they feel that this person is working against us. So imagine when they understand, or when they see you. I'll give you an example. So at the heat of all of this thing, at the height of all of this, of the looting and all of that, a former governor of a state, I saw the video recently, went into their mess.
Okay.
And everybody kept quiet. They were hailing him when he stepped in. And he said, I am sorry. But if you do all of this, who are you hurting? And now he just went to one portion. Imagine if every leader or every former leader decided to do that.
Yeah.
Because someone told me one time, and I was trying to get into a place, into an estate, and I was being rude. I was being rude. I was determined to have my way to get in. And
being obnoxious.
Okay, that's the word. When I eventually calmed down, because they were resisting, the guys that were, you cannot enter here. Make that phone call. You will not enter here. Do you know who I am? Trust us. Do you know who I am? They all sat down watching me.
Wow.
By the time I calmed down, made the phone call, and eventually got in, saw the person I wanted to see, came out. I realized I was very remorseful. So I came to them to say, I am sorry I behaved the way I behaved. I was under pressure and I was running against time. You know what they said to me? We understand. But you see, all that we needed for you to do, if you had even said, guys, how are you? Good morning. You did not greet. You did not even recognize that we were humans here. All you wanted to do was to get in. Just recognize that we are human. That was a lifetime lesson for me. The fact that anybody you meet, small or big,
even those who work for you, how are you, makes a difference. That may be the highlight of their day.
Hello.
How are you? Full stop.
My boss, no matter how upset he is, my boss, you've done wrong. My boss would always start out with, how are you? Before reprimanding you or praising you.
How are you? He puts a smile on your face and then the reprimand begins and he wipes away the smile immediately.
It also tells you that while he's trying to correct you, while he's trying to get you back on the right path, he also understands that you might be going through some things at that point in time that might have caused whatever it is that happened.
That you did,
So that understanding, can we just be human?
Yeah. Somebody said, I'm not talking about communism or socialism. I'm talking about humanism.
Let's just be human.
Full stop.
No need to go, be human. Live and, we normally live and let live, right?
Care for the other person. How are you?
You're driving on the road. Know that you're not the only person on the road. You don't have to honk for people to clear from the road because the big man is coming, or use your siren as the case may be. Humanism. Let's be human. Let's understand that on this earth we're a team. I don't know.
Yeah. You are right. Let's be human. Yes. That's all we need. Let's be human.
Yeah.
Whether you're a little child, whether you're a big man, whether you are a messenger, it doesn't matter. Just be human.
But sometimes that, I don't know, Alea. Some people will tell you, how can you expect that of me? How can you expect me?
Are you not a human being?
Okay. So, being human is... Can I expect you to be human and then I not be human?
Well, you can.
So what makes me think that I should...
Expect it of me when you can't be?
Exactly.
Well, I will also inform you that I expect it of you as well.
Okay. So at the end of the day, we come down to one matter, communication. How are we able to communicate this desire to each other?
Well, if your behavior is obnoxious all the time, there will come a point in time where I have to draw your attention to it. But if you can't be civil, then I will stop being civil to you.
And at that point, I'll be looking for who to blame. She was rude. I can't take that nonsense. She was rude to me. But I forget that I started out being rude. Oh boy. That's all I have on the menu today.
Well, actually we'll be looking at NSAS, a look at the judicial panel.
I understand they've had a couple of sittings.
They received recommendations. In a few states.
Yeah. And I think in Ogun State, the panel received 20 petitions in 2 weeks. Lagos has received at least 15. Anyway, that's part of the conversation. Then we'll look at eradicating poverty.
Ooh, that's the big one. That's the big one. Because all these NSAS and protests will make us focus more on this on a regular basis, because it's poverty that has driven our people to what happened, was it last week? Last week. Then after that, we'll be looking at COVID-19 and look at Nigeria's status.
Then, of course, we'll end with the artist of the week. He's a he.
And he's a friend of mine.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So I can actually leave the set.
You can leave it to us.
Anyway, so
you can leave it to us.
Make yourself comfortable. Whatever it is that makes you feel comfortable. We'll take a moment and we will be back to have the conversations. Please be a part of it. Keep it civil, nice, simple, short, so that we can share with the rest of the world. Don't go away.
Welcome back, and thank you for being with us. A week after the inauguration of the NSAS judicial panels across the country, Lagos State Judicial Panel of Inquiry began sitting to investigate the cases of police brutality in Lagos State. We have two lawyers in the house, legal practitioners, who are going to help us look at this issue. It's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Proverbs, Chima Naji. Good morning.
Alero.
And thank you.
When are you going to give me the certificate? Good morning, and it's my pleasure to be here.
I'm sure the viewers have missed you as well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We also have Tony Daniel. Good morning. Where are your glasses?
Good morning. Okay. I only needed to drive.
Okay. Thank you for also joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Now, let me start by asking you, Mr. Naji, to your mind, what are the challenges of this panel? Or should I say these panels, because they're spread all over the country?
Yes. First and foremost, we have to understand the motivation for establishing these panels. On the part of government, there was need to douse the tension and appear to be addressing some of the grievances that informed the protest in the first instance. Granted that it had been widely accepted and indeed known that it was not the NSAS protesters that derailed to the next level of carnage. There was a gap created by the process of governance that gave room, because you know nature abhors vacuum, for some people to cash in on that. But we can come into that later. To answer your question, these panels have a lot of challenges that will affront them in the course of the proceedings. One will be issue of jurisdiction. Yes, because
how so?
The reason I mentioned the issue of jurisdiction is that some of the entities that need to be investigated are federal agencies. And the law is very ossified in Nigeria, that where you have federal institutions involved in anything that has to do with legalism, it is the Federal High Court or the federal government that should have that supervening power. In the tribunals of inquiry, excuse me, law of Lagos State, for example, there is an omnibus provision within the powers of the Lagos State governor in issuing the instrument establishing any tribunal. There is an omnibus provision that gives an impression that there is a general application to every entity within the state, whether federal or state. But we know it's not going to be very easy. We saw that the snippet of that yesterday, when the panel wanted to visit the locus in quo. That's one of the locus in the mortuary. The mortuary.
Military, at the military
belonging to the military. And of course, the military will not say that they were not aware that there was such a panel, or maybe they were not aware that the panel was going to come. Perhaps the panel adjourned in the public that tomorrow this was going to be part of our activities, as the judge said, the chairman of the panel. But they refused. If nothing else, to assert that authority, that they could not be controlled. But I thought that angle could be papered over politically. Okay, being that Lagos State is APC and federal government is controlled by APC. So they will go and do it as a family affair, and we can paper over that. So to that extent, it may not constitute a strong impediment. But that is one of the issues, one of the challenges. The other challenge is that what protection is afforded petitioners to this panel? We saw yesterday in media that some of the people who testified against the individuals that were incarcerated at Benin prison, who let loose, have killed one of those witnesses against them, or against him. I saw it in the media. Okay? So what is the security measure placed put in place to safeguard the lives of people who are likely, because somebody, a policeman or anybody who may have victimized you, you know what happened on Monday can still happen on Thursday. This is Nigeria. The man who victimized you, if he's still alive, may have performed, you know, perfected the process of victimization. He might now liquidate you so that you don't expose him. Because people hardly shoot in the open. No policeman shoots in the open. Very few instances. They can shoot in corners where the public view is not so focused. So if you want to expose them, you run the risk of losing your life. That is another one. The other one is that it is still subject. Okay.
Before you go too far, we'll let you know there are a lot of challenges I know that are coming up. But let's bring Mr. Daniel to weigh in on that bit about the challenges that these panels are likely to come in contact with. I mean, Mr. Naji has mentioned like 3 or 4 of them.
Yes. While I agree with my colleague, Mr. Naji, I just want to say that it's a pretentious approach to resolving issues that the system is fully aware of. Pretentious in the sense that, oh, let's just do this to placate them. I mean, they will see us doing something. We've been talking here. This is the second time myself and Mr. Naji have appeared here. We talk about issues all the time. This government ignores. Every life is important, irrespective of the owner of the life. We are dancing around the issues. Now, can the panel of inquiry find out from the people who call hoodlums and criminals why they attacked the court? The system should know that even though that attack is condemned, we are condemning it, but it shows that the common and poor persons are losing confidence in the court. This is the first time there will be a protest and the court is touched. Can they come to the panel of inquiry? That is one. The panel should have power to take note of notorious facts and take note of things we have been talking about. The issue is not just the police. For God's sake, the police are also human beings. What we know at Lekki Tollgate was that there was an unprovoked attack against innocent protesters. Then the consequences of the attack became an issue. Oh, 100 people died, 20 people died, and all that. But the fact is that there was an attack. And the people attacked were innocent. And the attack was unprovoked, was improper. And that is enough to condemn the people that did the attack. We can now look at the casualties. But the casualties should not derail us from the primary fact that that attack was totally unnecessary. The panel will not be able to meet Can the family of the bereaved, like my colleague said, some of them will not be able to bring petition to the panel. And the panel waits for you to bring petition.
Yes.
The panel should be able to. And by the way, the panel is likely to make recommendation. It has no judicial power to convict. It has no judicial power to try. It can listen, make inquiry, and make recommendation. Now, the primary references given to the panel is the EdSARS process, police brutalities, and all that. What we need is the total reformation of the Nigerian police and reformation of the military and all paramilitary agencies.
Now, Tony, you said the panel cannot
convict.
Cannot convict.
Yes.
So, what happens, for instance, we heard somebody saying that they took his house, they took his this, they took his that, and even though the court ruled that he was to be compensated, he wasn't compensated. So, if they actually find that all the things he said, and I'm sure he's going to name somebody who did all those things to him, who beat him and plucked his teeth out and all that, if he names the person, what is the consequence of that to that person? Nothing?
The panel will make recommendation on what is to be done.
Okay, so the person can then be tried in a proper court of law, right?
Yes, the person can be tried. The person can be compensated by the government. It depends on the recommendation the panel will give. You understand me? So, but the issues are issues we all know. If we don't follow the law, even though we are saying we need to amend the Constitution, but the Constitution as it is, are we complying with it? Are we following it? You have your fundamental rights. Are they being protected? Who are the ones that are supposed to protect this? The police will go wrong. The police will investigate the police. EFCC personnel will go wrong. EFCC will investigate. The military will go wrong. You go and call military police. We should establish an independent body to investigate most of this wrong. And we have been saying this. The problem is that the government refused to listen. If you create the enabling environment, things will move. The level of poverty in the country is so high. The dichotomy, the difference, the distance between the rich and the poor is so wide. And the fact that political appointment, election into public offices is now a business. You go there and you think, for God's sake, the Nigeria is like my own, my company. I'm the MD, like the president. I wouldn't want to run at a loss. I want to make sure the staff are happy. I want to make sure directors are on their job. Why is it difficult to make things work in Nigeria? Nigeria is very easy to rule. You know why? Nigerians are very good at compliance. When you block up the toll gate, Third Mainland Bridge, people comply willingly. COVID-19 still at home, people comply. BVM, you are prying to my privacy, people comply. We are doing water for ourselves. Every street, they talk about security. So we are already doing some of the things the government is supposed to do. So it makes it easy. The government need to just have the interest of the people at heart. Then things will work out. And then I want to quickly say that some of the things the panel will not also see is, for instance, without prejudice to the fact that we condemn police brutality, what can the police also come and make complaint? I saw a video where a police heard of the DPO that was killed. I saw a video of a policeman that was beaten, clubbed to death. Can they come and make arrangements? I think we also need to make a case for the police. The police must be reformed in such a way that senior officers don't shout out orders to the junior officer that will cause an abuse of the right of the citizens that they are supposed to protect.
Let me just add to the issue of recommendation, what can happen to that. Recommendations of the panel, when made, if there is no reasonable dissent, will be packaged and presented to the governor. And the governor, if he accepts any of such recommendation under the law, will transmit such recommendations to the registrar of the High Court. And that recommendation becomes the judgment of that High Court that can be enforced. So you don't need to go to trial outside that recommendation. And again, under that law, there is no evidence given in that tribunal that can be used against anybody outside that tribunal. So that if somebody testified that you are a murderer, it cannot be used against you in any proceeding in this country. So the final recommendation that sees the approval of the governor is the one that can go to the registrar of a court. That is also where one of the challenges, because these recommendations, as factual and unbiased as they might be, will still be subject to certain political considerations. Because there is a final gatekeeper. It is unlike the one that can yield from a judicial process. And the tribunal law prohibits anything that has been transmitted to the registrar, made judgment of a court, to be subject to appeal or any review on prerogative grounds. So it's the final.
So this, the name, Judicial Panel of Inquiry, doesn't really help in any way?
Well, it helps because the head of such a panel is a judge. Okay? He's a judge. A judge is a judge, retired or serving. The retired is even that the wine gets better by age. Okay? So to that extent, there is a certain degree of decorum. Okay? Both at the bench and at the bar. So that even if a witness is being led by a counsel, the tribunal will be able to digest all the submissions, understand the issues being canvassed, and the processes under which they are being canvassed. But if you have an administrative panel, the application of the Evidence Act may be very limited. And when it is limited like that, one of the major attacks that we talk about human rights is unfair hearing. When you do not have the opportunity to express yourself, which is what the NSAS people are talking about. The policeman sees you on the road, he will not regard your ID card. Because when you show your ID card, you may be able to establish some guilt in him if he decides to attack you. So the person is to depersonalize you, dehumanize you, and present you in a manner that will fit the homunculus, what he thinks about a criminal. So these are some of the issues that when we talk about the tribunal is very important, like you say, what is the essence of that panel? Psychologically, everybody will be looking forward to the outcome. You saw even some retired soldiers that are speaking on television, they will say, let us wait. It helps you to also hide certain things that you probably would have been exposed if you were cornered in an interview on a television. You understand? Like you have a dustbin, you consign everything to the dustbin and wrap it up. At the end of this process, and the government looks at what came out of, or what comes out of this, the panel, knowing the power it still has, it might be in a position to still water down the grievances that have been expressed and canvassed in the
Mr. Daniel May said he used pretentious. He used the word, and I think he used it advisedly, pretentious approach to covering up things that should have been looked at over time. Now, these panels are practically in almost all the states in the South and in the Middle Belt. Are we not seeing any hope that these panels might help to concretize issues so that the political class will know that these things matter and should be looked at real quick?
Well, I made a veiled statement that looked like his own, only that I came short of using the word pretense.
Yes, that's true.
Pretense has to do with a spirited attempt to cajole. Some of these things are things that have been done over years. Anybody who is experiencing the governance process in Nigeria knows that we've been doing the same thing all over and over. So you know the reaction of police if you say there is a crime. They will arrest everybody, pack everybody, go and keep them, and you begin to
filter them.
Like these ones that are in the field, 400 and something arrested. One woman says she wanted to go and buy something for her, and even brought some ethnic angle to it. But these are the issues we know very well in this country. Governments do the same thing that the previous ones did even if they condemned it when they were campaigning, necessarily because some of them know better. So I will not use that pretentious, because some of them don't know better. You pretend when you know something, but you decide to do otherwise and present a facade that gives the impression that you are on with those people. Now, you can see the frenetic manner some of these things were formed. Okay, the tribunals already have terms of references. You just lift the term from the law. Then people will be battling. It's just like those people who say that sailors to settle mermaids in the ocean and allow them to carry their consignment. They drop small sweets and hot drinks. While they are battling on how to share it, the sailor takes the ship away and is entitled to his pay. Yes. So the point I'm making is that these panels, things that are nice will come out of them, but they may not go deep enough, like Daniel said. The issue, like for example, the first victim, or the first petitioner, yes, in Lagos here, said he was awarded 10 million naira. And you saw the story. You know, words don't normally express everything. If they hang you with a belt, how do you explain the velocity of the blood that was rushing into your brain? And how much contusion? You can only say contusion. And somebody who understands the word will say, okay, there was contusion. You understand? Just like when you say somebody is poor, there are gradations of poverty. How do you describe that somebody for 3 days did not eat? That is not poverty. People fast. But the hopelessness that even after that 3 days, you will still not be able to see food. That's the one that kills. Do you understand what I mean? So sometimes words are incapable of expressing feelings or realities. But then there are contraptions made for us to be able to at least try. So that man with his 10 million naira, which is no longer of the same value. I don't know how they are going to value it, even if they are going to insist that the 10 million naira be paid. Naira has taken a lot of battering and beatings. Okay? So maybe that 10 million naira now is about 25% of what it used to be then, given the parity of dollar. So there might be some, there should be some good, necessarily, but it will not go deep because we have left the turtle's leg. If I want to give a little what she wanted. The turtle's leg is in the water and you are there to pick it. You left it and you have gone for taproot. The turtle will necessarily go away and come back to the same place to cause any havoc that it had wanted to do. So the government is only showing the damages done everywhere, which is completely insensitive. It is people that made those properties. As much as damages may have been so injurious and perhaps condemnable, but something made that event happen. Who ordered the killings? Something in the causal chain, okay? You don't go for reaction, you go for the action first. Because action and reaction are equal and opposite, for those who know physics. So the truth of the matter is that because government has the power of coercion and dominance, they are trying to dominate the media space. Thank God for the variegated media system we now have. Otherwise, if it was in the days of one of those major government television houses and one newspaper, then we would have bought into the narrative that it was in fact those demonstrators that did everything. Okay. So the truth of the matter, including the shooting and everything, in fact you saw that they were even pushing that it was not the military. That was even the greatest indictment. Because if in a sane society where there should be security and a particular grade of people will put themselves in uniform, come with gun and boldly come in the face of everybody without any fear of any dire consequences. That is the greatest and grotesque indictment
Okay, I wanted to say that there is a purpose for this inquiry. The unrest we had, the protests and all that. Now there is a purpose. There's something informed that protest. And nobody should pretend that it's just only the brutality of police or SARS. It is dissatisfaction with governance. So the federal government and the state government should not make it look like as they have been doing before. They should be sincere in solving the problem. And in solving this problem, good governance. Good governance. For example, because if you take problems individually, you will have issue. How many can you solve? Give a generic approach to resolving problems.
Okay, can you just hold your thoughts? We'll pick it up from that point, the generic approach to resolving problems, but that one will come back from this break. Just stay with us.
This marks the inauguration of a 9-man panel that will investigate the alleged abuse of fundamental human rights and police brutality, especially by officers of the disbanded Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, in Rivers State, South Nigeria. At the inauguration, Governor Nyesom Wike charges members to be diligent in their assigned responsibility. The panel has 60 days to report its findings.
I know that in things like this, logistics is always the problem. So I would believe that immediately you finish this inauguration, the chairman should be able to sit down with the Attorney General Secretary to Government so that they identify where you will use for a sitting.
Let's have a seat. In the southwest Osun State, Governor Boyega Oyetola inaugurates a 12-man panel on police brutality, which is to begin sitting just as the state government suspends a 24-hour curfew across the state.
Thank you very much.
The panel of judicial inquiry comprises of members from different sectors such as the academia, civil society organizations, youth organizations, and more.
Know that they are being called to this sacred duty until the time the status of the state as a peaceful one is being challenged, and at the time the recommendations and outcomes are needed to instill confidence in the enraged youth and trust in the government.
In Adamawa State and Northeast, an 11-member judicial panel has been set up to begin investigation into allegations of police brutality by the disbanded Anti-Robbery Squad. A Special Security and Human Rights Commission is also in the works with a mandate to supervise the newly formed Police Tactical Unit and other security agencies.
To receive and investigate complaints on police brutality or related extrajudicial killings, to evaluate evidence presented and other surrounding circumstances, and draw conclusions as to the validity of the complaints.
And in Taraba State, the Governor Darius Ishaku set up an 11-man judicial panel of inquiry and restitution for victims of police brutality and other security agencies. The panel, according to the Governor, will investigate rampant cases of police brutality and killings, ascertain the extent of judicial intervention in reducing the frequency of cases.
To identify lapses in our legal system, if any, that aid police brutality and killings in Taraba State and recommend appropriate amendments.
In Abia State, the Governor, Dr. Okeze Ipgazu, has directed the setting up of a committee to ascertain the level of damage to private and public infrastructure as a result of the recent protests to enable governments begin immediate restoration.
Thank you for staying with us. Victor was sent in a tweet. He sent in 2 tweets already. One talking about the former governor I was talking about.
Okay.
But then he talked about this, said the UN recognized the hard work of a Nigerian policewoman. What this tells us, if people have an enabling environment, they will do the right thing. There must be real reforms in the police and in Nigeria. He says, not just end SARS. Mr. Daniel, you were talking about
approach to resolving the issues we have. I started with what led to this whole thing. And then we've been talking about what we think should be done. And then I want to refer to the statement of Asiwaju, when he said the leaders of the protests will be engaged. Who are the leaders? I didn't see no leaders. And then no leader because people like us who would have voluntarily come to lead. By now, maybe I'll be detained in DSS office. And then that discouraged people coming out to coordinate the protest. And then rather what we saw was celebrities coming to do a jamboree. Check your flag, talk. Nobody was addressing the issue intellectually. Now, the federal government cannot pretend that they don't know the problem. They cannot. I am not in support of the carnage, the destruction and all that. I am not. But something led to it. One, government have refused to deliver on good governance to the people. Two, and they have openly...
Daniel, let me ask this question. When you say deliver good governance, there are those who are of the school of thought that the government has been trying. All manner of intervention processes have been put out there by government to ease the pain.
I agree that to some extent we are doing well in rice. I agree that we can do better in agri, but it is not bad. I am not saying they are not doing anything at all, but delivering on good governance, for instance, creating the enabling environment for people to develop themselves. For example, what does it take for us to have regular light in Nigeria? We've been on this lighting for so long. What they are doing is that when they get to government, they think of enriching themselves, enrich their cronies, enrich their family. What does it take to run the government? Okay, access to funds made easy. Education, general policy, make it a national policy that you must complete secondary school, wherever you are, however it is. You understand? Those old days, it was only the Southwest that we have total free education. Why don't we have a national free education? Look at the difference between the South. The East, who are enterprising, if they have free education, when we have free education here, you can imagine where they would have gone to. You see Nigerians going out and excelling. What do they have out there that is making them to excel that we cannot, establish here? If we establish them here, I want to quickly digress a little bit. I bought a land, somebody was there, he said, oh, I need a place where I have regular light. I'm researching, a Nigerian engineer, I'm researching on how to use furnaces to generate electricity. The man has gone 80%. Do we have special training for technological? In China, when you are in primary school, they are teaching you how to do batteries and all that. We don't have that here. The policies the people are deliberately giving us short-term policies. And there is no sustainable arrangement for this policy to live beyond those that are giving them. And most of them, when they are doing this, they are doing it as if they are doing it for themselves. For example, look at governors that are saying, when I retire, pay me. They are thinking of themselves. They are not looking at the future. Why will I pay you? The men that have done 35 years, we are not paying them what you want to pay for 8 years that you have rolled. You understand? So, and you see Nigerians are watching you. What we have was a spontaneous reaction to cumulative provocation, dissatisfaction, hearing billions and not seeing what is meant for. See people that are accused of stealing billions and teaching us how to fence artificially. Seeing a minister that has so much billions to work with, and the people investigating him is saying you are involved, and the chairman is saying keep quiet, don't talk. And we are watching them. You think the people are happy? Look at the court, for instance, that I referred to. You think I don't say they don't know that magistrates, some of them are corrupt, that the policemen that go there are corrupt, that people that are supposed to ordinarily walk away, you make them to go to prison. When they come, I think they'll be happy with you. Who is going to investigate it? Can the panel go to the hoodlum and ask them, why did you touch the court? I don't want to go to the traditional head of Lagos State, but it has never happened. Why did it happen? It has never happened. Oba Oyeko was there and the rest. Why didn't we experience this? Who will ask this question? The truth is that we are running away from the truth.
Mr. Naji. The panel is sitting. Both of you have talked about the outcome of this panel. When the outcome is presented to the governor, when the recommendations across the country, when the recommendations are presented to the governor, if he signs off on them and is handed over to a high court, it becomes a judgment of the court.
Yes.
You said so. But the matter of governance who would determine that issue of good governance? Because a lot of people, apparently, different people have different definitions for good governance.
Well, looks like the Nigerian knows what good governance is, because one guy, Ubebe, says the government should stop pursuing shadows. The issues with NSAS protests are not only about the police brutality, but also about bad governance, social injustice, corruption, and so on. So these are all parts of bad governance.
Exactly. But bad governance, good governance. Okay, what's governance?
You know, you cannot scratch me where it does not itch, and I say thank you. Did I communicate? Thank you is a word you use when a good turn is done to you. When people in government, like he was talking about funds and all the programs and all that, is it trickling down? Good governance, when you bring it to the atomic level, means that there is greatest happiness for the greatest number within a particular polity. Spiritedly activated, not by accident, because accidents don't yield good results on a consistent basis. That means that the people at the driver's seat of that governance process must be knowledgeable. That's the issue of competence, because you can't give what you don't have. And our recruitment process in the political process is highly flawed. It's in fact more of charlatans these days. Those who don't have any business getting close to, but they shoot their way through. If it is service, you don't shoot. You tell people. I remember in those days there was a campaign Awo attended on his way to Calabar. He stopped over in Benin. And people were shy. It was getting late. He told them, because apparently he knew that he was doing good to them, and they knew. The free education, I saw many professors. In the person of Awojobi in those days, he was like, if he didn't go to school, people would say that he was Awo's thug because of the spirited way he was supporting him. What was it? Because he felt that Awo was relevant in the lives of the people. Awo alighted from his helicopter and said, you people may not know that I am going to Calabar. I don't know. He had the guts to tell them because he knew he was relevant to their lives. Today's politician will dance around and pretend he was with them and share clothes and all that. But he told them, please hold your dancing and all that. I have a message for you because I am busy. I want to go to Calabar. I don't know. I have not lost that in my head. That is what you should be arrogant of. Your service, if you want to serve. You tell the people, if you want me, I am here. But if you don't want me, I go back.
Fine.
You are the ones that will lose. But the one that has come to steal will shoot his way, bribe his way, do everything, all the shenanigans. So when you're talking about good governance, you can't give what you don't have. First, the man who is driving, can you enter a vehicle of a man who doesn't know how to drive and you want to go to Shagam? If you have not written your will. It's not possible. So why do we pretend in one area of our life we want things done well, in another one we want confusion? Things don't work like that because nature is imbued in logic. Everything is interconnected. The logic is the same for every sphere of life. So if you want to go hungry, and you want your neighbor to also go hungry when there is food, you are breeding ceremony. There will be complaint. So good governance is the ability of people who have been given in that social contract to take care of the majority, absolute majority, because the theory of democracy is that not everybody will be happy. But the absolute majority, not just majority, because majority starts from 50.000009. But absolute majority could inch up to even 89, 90 something percent. So the issue about the argument of the NSAS people and government's veiled effort to keep it in the back seat and project the damage is not going to work. Because just as you run away from the gunpowder with fire, in the same manner you run away from the fire with gunpowder. Because the capacity of fire to be fire is already in it. And the capacity of gunpowder to be incendiary is already in it. So when these two come in together, they will do what they know best. So the point we're saying is that the NSAS protest and all its ramifications, because they just used the SARS issue as symbolic. The only unfortunate thing was that people, like Daniel said, the issue of leadership, if it was very properly harnessed, nobody should have gone into the issue of asking the president to resign. As at that moment. You don't go hunting and look at your hunting mate and say your leg is like a squirrel. He now knows that he's likely to be a target. He can shoot you first. You understand what I mean? That was the problem. Regime protection came in. And the insensitivity of the institutions that protect regime overwhelmed the situation, because they now saw the other people as wanting to change the regime. And then the regime protection mode was activated.
Yes. Mr. Naji, you spoke about the good of the majority.
Absolute majority.
Now, I want to refer to the sheer numbers of those that we saw looting across the nation.
Yes.
It was like, I mean, whole towns of people. What does that say to you about the numbers of which you spoke?
That number, the ones that were captured.
Yes.
Because remember that the television cameras were not ready, waiting for people to come and loot. Some of them were captured by cameras, telephone cameras and all that. In such an instantaneous manner, with the object of the person shooting to take care of his or her own security or safety, as the case may be. The number is a signification of the grotesque level, abysmal level of governance that this country has been experiencing in a cumulative manner. Because like I said, people in government, many of them are not in this place to offer anything. Because sometimes they don't have anything. And when you don't have anything, you look for something. You look for religion, you look for ethnicity, and you saw how these things were, they tried to contrive those primordial cleavages to water down or mask the issues on the table. And God veered us away from that. Because they thought if that had ignited, then their own sins would have been covered. But by God's grace, the youth said no. And this is a signpost that tomorrow, the youths of today are better educated. They are better traveled. They are better exposed. They are well, in fact, miscegenation is a factor now. Intermarriages. The youth goes to London, he sees a girl, he doesn't even know where she comes from. He says, you are a Nigerian, the next day they are in the registry. When they have children, are you going to tell those children that because you are Yoruba or because you are Igbo or because you are Hausa? Those children are children of marriages born out of love. And if that ethnic group wants to rise against the other one, you already have a saboteur. Therefore, people in government today, who ordinarily should be retiring anyway, should recede and know that tomorrow has become greater, or is going to be greater than today. Even that today is greater than yesterday, which many of them come from. A.C. Catherine said, I'm interested in tomorrow because that's where I intend to live. The young ones are looking forward to tomorrow and busting today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Tony.
You see, one thing these protests have registered is that Nigerians can react. Federal government have seen that Nigerians can react.
In unison.
In unison. Without considering ethnic offspring, religion, sentiment, and all that. We can be united. And we can make a demand. Now, the people leading us should stop deceiving us. Look at the whole infrastructural facilities in Nigeria. Roads. Oh, Bola, go and fix that road in 9 months' time. Kehinde will come and do it. Don't worry. Just be patient. Kehinde, don't worry. Idowu or Shikudi. That's what they were doing. Show me one road that has been done since 1999 that has survived to date. When you build a road, the road is supposed to last so long. We don't have that. Then, with my small company, I know that if I save in the bank, COTs can be avoided if I have a small balance. I won't pay COT. I saw the declaration of COT by the federal government. And I'm a citizen. Other people are saying this thing. They are not happy. When Boko Haram started, I was among the first to inquire how the improvised explosive devices can be jammed. Because it is by remote control and it is frequency. And we made inquiry. I know how much they sell. I don't want to go into certain details. I know how much they sell mobile jammer of frequency and stationary jammer. I know how much they said they bought it when the federal government were saying they bought it. I am not alone here. Other people might have attempted. And they will say, what? You are doing this openly. What you need to do, create lights, education, not just a temporary thing, generic thing, infrastructural facility, road, social facility. How many of these, our security operative lives are insured? My small office, my staff, their lives are insured. It doesn't cost much. It's just to take their annual salary and negotiate a percentage. It's no more than 5%. And that will give them morale. You understand me? So what the government need to do is to change. This panel of inquiries are cosmetic. Federal government knows the truth. They know what to do because there are persons there. I run my company. I wouldn't want my company to fall. I would like to exploit possible cheap quality method of keeping my company afloat.
Period.
No, but honestly...
Thank you very much, Mr. Daniel. That's where we have to leave it this morning. I mean, like, this is the nature of live television. We never seem to have enough time. The discussion just seems to be warming up, but I'm sorry we've run completely out of time. Mr. Tony Daniel and Mr. Chima Naji, both legal practitioners, thank you very much for coming to share your insights with us this morning. Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation. Make sure you join us.
Thank you for staying with us. A recent report by the World Bank says that the COVID-19 pandemic is estimated to push an additional 88 million to 115 million people into extreme poverty this year, with the total rising to as many as 150 million in 2021, which depends on economic contraction. Hello.
That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people.
Okay. Well, to help us understand exactly what is happening and how to eradicate poverty, we have Olumide Ojo, Program Manager, Resident of Private Sector Engagement, Oxfam, Nigeria, that should be joining us. But we have Sheila Nkunika, Senior Social Protection Specialist, Save the Children International, Nigeria. Hello, Sheila. Thank you for joining us. Sheila, if you can hear me, these numbers put forward by the World Bank, 88 million to 115 million people being pushed into extreme poverty, and this is likely to grow by up to 150 million by 2021. Those numbers are scary. Do you agree?
Hello, sorry, I didn't get that.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, please.
Okay, so I was talking about the numbers put forward by the World Bank, 88 million to 115 being pushed into extreme poverty. And that might grow up to 150 by 2021. Those numbers are scary. Even within our own space, for instance, where there was that figure put out there about 80 million Nigerians live below the poverty line. We talk about extreme poverty here.
Yes, so what we see with these trends is that the poverty, for instance, in Nigeria is already high. So what COVID-19 did, COVID-19 was like a very significant shock to those households. So those households, 80 million plus for Nigeria, were already living in poverty. What it means is that when COVID-19 struck, it really broke down that system of making income for the household. So you find a lot of these households are dependent on daily income. A lot of them were negatively affected by the lockdown. So what the lockdown meant was that these people would not go out anymore to go and make ends meet. But even beyond that, there were a lot of other effects. So for children, for instance, were affected because there's a heightened malnutrition level in the households. Even those that we don't consider extremely poor, especially in urban areas, because they are into petty businesses, into some form of trading, became very poor. So actually these figures are really real, and for Nigeria they're very real. So this year alone, the World Bank estimates that 5 million people in Nigeria itself, before the end of the year, will go into poverty. So these figures really speak to a current situation that is on the ground. And I think this situation really needs to be addressed in various ways. So one of the critical things that can be done is to strengthen social protection systems. These are systems that have been proven across the world to really address issues of poverty and vulnerability, and just to support households' engagement into economic activity, to cushion them, to prevent them from taking negative coping mechanisms, and just to help them to cope with such shocks. So speaking to those figures, yes, the World Bank is right. That is actually what is happening on ground. And as we go ahead, unless measures are taken or systems are put in place to protect these people, we expect to see an enormous jump in the number of people that are living below the poverty line.
Sheila, let me ask you something pretty basic. How is poverty measured? At what point is one considered impoverished?
Okay, so that is a very interesting question. So globally, they consider poverty as anybody who's living below $1.9 a day, okay? So strangely, when we come to Nigeria, though, we have adopted a national definition of poverty. So what you find, according to the recent Living Standard Survey, is that anybody who's living below 137,450,000 naira a year is considered poor. This, when you divide it by every day, it's about 367 naira per day, which is basically $1. So when you look at the Nigerian calculation of poverty, it actually looks at $1 per day. When you look at the global calculation of poverty, this talks about $1.9 a day. So there is that variation. But in any case, countries determine on their own their poverty line. So the poverty line here in Nigeria is determined by basic food. So how much money as a person do I require every day to have my basic calorie intake? Apart from that, what are other services or other things that I should access in that day? So that is that calculation. So in Nigeria itself, a person is considered poor if they do not have 137,450,000 naira per year. And that is basically just 387 naira per day. So that is the definition of poverty here in Nigeria. Though, when we talk about poverty, people like to think about it in monetary terms. But this goes beyond the monetary discussion of poverty. We need to look at the multidimensional. So when we talk about multidimensional, what are those other issues that result into a household being considered poor? So for instance, access to education, access to health, maternal mortality, access to water, child mortality. So in Nigeria, for instance, we now have the largest number of stunted children, okay? So this number of stunted children basically means that these children did not get enough nutrition, they did not get enough water and sanitation from the time their parents were pregnant to the time they were born. This is entirely not a new thing. It's not very most people would not worry about it, but what it means is that in the next 20 years, as those children grow up, they become less productive. So when we talk about poverty, you can think about it in monetary terms, but it's important also to know that it goes beyond the money factor. And here we're talking about multidimensional poverty, access to a lot of other social services, participation. So there are a lot of different dimensions of poverty.
You know, Sheila, this it's a good thing that we're looking at spreading the net, not just looking at the monetary side of it. Because if you want to look at the monetary side, 367 naira per day can hardly buy a loaf of bread for a family. I mean, in the current situation we find ourselves, 450, depending on where you live or what kind of bread you want to eat. But Sheila, if we look at this, the broad picture you painted about the different sides of it, the social amenities of life, education, health, if you look at all of that, how do we begin to talk about eradicating poverty? Where do we begin?
So I had this very interesting discussion a few weeks ago with some colleagues. So we discussed the question to say, if somebody came to ask you, the president asked you today to say, what is the one thing that I should do to address the high levels of poverty in Nigeria? The point was that there were a lot of diverse answers. So some people said, okay, well, if you just took everybody to school, if you gave everybody enough food, okay, if we had free access to education, if we did industrialization. There were even answers around if we need prayers, okay? So what's the one thing that you need to get out of poverty? The answer was prayer. So we understand that poverty basically is not there's no one solution to eradicating poverty. It's about different strategies that need to work together. So one of these strategies is social protection, okay? So social protection across different countries has been shown to really address issues of poverty. So the reason why social protection is very vital is because it targets directly the poor and the vulnerable. There are a lot of programs. So for Nigeria, as for the rest of Africa and the rest of the world, in the last 20 years or so, economies have been growing. But despite this economic growth, we have not seen corresponding reductions in poverty. So this makes you to understand that even if our economies grow, even if we have more money in these economies, this money is not spread evenly to everyone. Not everybody benefits from these resources. So that's why you need to put in social protection. Now, social protection, as is defined by the Nigerian social protection policies, basically measures and programs that are put in place by governments to address shocks, poverty, vulnerability, and risks. The importance of social protection is, apart from just other programs, which are broad social policies. So education is a broad social policy. Health is a broad social policy. When you talk about social protection, it really targets those people that are the poorest. The government here in Nigeria has been strengthening the social protection system. We now have a policy that is being reviewed. There's the National Social Investment Program, and under that, the National Social Safety Net Program. But what we need to understand is that there are a lot of challenges around those programs. So there's a lot of fragmentation. At the end of the day, no one solution can deal with the poverty that is on ground. So there's a lot of fragmentation. There's issues of coverage. So a lot of people are not covered by these mechanisms. I'll give you one interesting example that comes up to me. So when people talk about China, usually everybody thinks about the fantastic economic growth that happened there. But what they do not talk about is behind that economic growth, the government of China took measures, basically put these measures in place to ensure that that economic growth results in poverty reduction. So before, as in 1981, China had about almost 750 million people living in poverty. That was like almost, at the time, 8% of their population. Coming down now to about 2013, most recently, they have managed to reduce that number to 1.8% of their population living in poverty. Imagine just the 1.8%. And most of these are in rural areas. So they've lifted basically about 750 million people out of poverty over a space of, let's say, 20-something years. Yes, poverty takes long to do that. But what China did was, apart from just focusing on their economic growth, they also put in place measures around poverty reduction, okay? They took measures around ensuring access to social services. So for instance, they made compulsory education up to year 9. Apart from that, also they introduced a lot of social protection programs, okay? So some of these in rural areas, some of these in urban areas, to give income support to these households, to give them access to services, to help them engage with the economy. And beyond that also, they increased social insurance types of programs. So people were insured for when they face a shock or when they no longer can access their income. So most people, when they talk about China's success story, they like to focus on the economic part, but we forget that there's a lot of investments in the social part, particularly in social protection. So I think for Nigeria, already we see that the economy is affected by COVID-19. To strengthen it also and to just ensure that there's recovery, I think there's need for a focus both on the social side, particularly around social protection, and also on the economic side. If we do not do that, even if the country continues to grow, this growth will only belong to a few people.
Let's look at those safety, what do you call that, social protection and safety nets that have been put in place by government, and compared to the ones or the situation you mentioned in China. In China, part of what they did, part of social protection is also economic protection. So at the point they shut down their borders, so nothing that is not made in China is brought in or bought within China. In our case, we still have a lot of importation coming in. We still have, besides those safety nets that are being put out, I mean, conditional cash transfer, trader money, all those interventions by government here and there, artisan money. You begin to look at the value of even the currency or the value of the money that are given to this man to invest in his business, considering the fact that some other amenities like power, road, and water are not available. So how would that help? If you say, no, if you're comparing the situation we have with China, let's break it down a little bit further.
Okay. That is a very interesting question. Thank you. So I think at the end of the day, it's about achieving that balance. So sometimes I think, ideally, most traditional governance systems tend to think that as long as the economy is growing, everybody will access the benefits of economic growth. And on the other side, as you said, the assumption is as long as we're giving these people some form of support, they'll be economically stable. But at the end of the day, what I mentioned in the case of China is balancing those investments. So making sure that the economy continues to grow, that is one thing. Investing in social services, so also economic infrastructure, so access to roads, markets, those are also critical, because at the end of the day, if those things continue to grow, people are protected from shocks and are also given some form of income protection. They're able to take advantage of what exists in the economy. So my point is to ensure that there's that balance. So we're not just focusing on the economic growth and thinking once the economy grows, everything else becomes okay. And we're not just focusing to say once we provide this particular income support to the poorest, they'll be able to take advantage of what is happening in the economy. So it's making sure that we consider both social development, economic development, social infrastructure, economic infrastructure, as all of them as being necessary to achieving growth for the country, so to achieving overall development of the country. So that is basically what is very key. So sometimes there are decisions on which type. Obviously, government does not have money that just goes on for forever. At the end of the day, they need to prioritize. But in prioritizing this, there's need to understand how one part of the economy or one part of the social side affect each other. So what are those linkages that need to be fostered? What are those things that we should be putting in place to make sure that the economy continues to grow, but as it grows, people are carried along and can also enjoy those benefits of economic growth? So I think that is a very critical point. Getting that balance is not always easy, because sometimes there's a notion to say as long as the economy continues to grow, eventually everybody will be carried along and eventually everybody will benefit from what is happening. But unless the deliberate efforts are put in place, this is always not the case. And we've seen, I think, with a lot of African countries, including Nigeria, that economies have grown over a long period of time. But in any case, the poverty reduction has been very, very small. So even in Nigeria now, people will tell you a few years ago, we had 58% population poor. We now have like 40.1 thereabouts. But at the end of the day, in the real sense, there's no reduction because we've had population growth. So without growth, it means more people. When we say 40%, that's still more people than that was before that are living in poverty.
I'd like you to connect these dots for me, please, if you don't mind. Nigeria is has one of Africa's largest economies. Nigeria also has probably the largest proportion of poor people. Can you please connect those two for me?
Had a short break, can you just say that?
Yes. Nigeria has one of the largest economies in Africa. Nigeria has almost the highest percentage of poor people. Can you please connect those two?
It's a very interesting question and point that you've raised. Indeed, as you said, Nigeria is the biggest economy here in Africa, but actually it has the largest number of poor people in the world, okay?
So the largest number of not just in Africa,
in poverty across the world. But despite that, yes, so we have the biggest economy. So I think a key issue there to look at is where exactly is this economy growing, okay? So we find, like is the case with most African countries, it's in the extractive, okay? The extractive industry. But when you ask yourself to say, where do we find a significant number of people, which sector are these people found in? We find that it's agriculture. So even if we are growing and maybe the oil markets before, of course, the COVID-19 were quite high, there was a lot of money coming in, there's some form of manufacturing, though at a small level, we find that those sectors do not employ the largest number of people, okay? It's the agriculture sector that employs the largest number of people. So a critical issue is where is the growth taking place? Is the growth taking place in the sector that has the most people? That is a very important question. So if we were seeing, for instance, the growth levels that we have in maybe the oil or the gas industry, in the agriculture industry, it means all those people that are involved in that value chain would benefit from the growth. So that's why you see, despite the huge growth that is taking place in the economy or the significant growth, we don't find this trickling down to a large number of people because these people are in the other sector, so the more traditional sector, the agriculture sector. So unless we can invest in a lot of people in that sector and make sure that they can increase productivity, they have access to markets, this will still remain to be a challenge. If you look, for instance,
Sheila, permit me to interrupt you here, Sheila. We will need to go on a quick break. We'll come back and pick it up from this point. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We still have the Save the Children International Social Protection Specialist, Sheila Nkunika, in our Abuja studio. Sheila, before we went on that break,
she was connecting the dots. We have the largest economy, we have the largest number of poor people.
Yeah, Sheila, can you pick it up from there?
Yes. So as I was saying, you find that most of this economic growth is in the oil industry, so in the gas sectors, but we find most of the poor people are actually in the agriculture sector. So unless those sectors are taken up and there's investment there and value chains are built, we will continue to see this type of characteristic in the country. In fact, when you talk about this particular situation, if you look at the recent LNSS, you find that it says the Gini coefficient, so the inequality measurement is about 35.2, if I'm not mistaken. When you look into the numbers, you actually discover that only 20% of the Nigerian population actually enjoy 40% of all the income in the country. Okay? So the remaining 80% of the population have only access to the remaining about 60% of the income. Even worse, the very bottom 20% only have access to 6%. Okay? So you can see the top have 40%. The very bottom have 6% of the income. So those disparities, those inequalities are definitely there and are very visible, even when you just look at basically the data. So, and as I said, as long as most of the people are not carried along in the different economic activities that are happening, as long as investments are not being made in agriculture, for instance, where we find the most people, or in very small, medium-sized businesses, where most people are struggling, if support is not being provided there, and linkages to markets and other things like that, you find that the economy will continue to look like that. So we have very strong growth, but the number of poor consistently remains high.
Sheila, just before we let you go, let's see this. Someone, D. Tough, sent this in and says, efforts at eradicating poverty should take place mainly via mindset reset in areas such as best practice government, living standards enhancement, social investment, order plus security, value creation, continuous skill acquisition, and zero tolerance to corruption and nepotism. Do you agree with DTOF? And how do you think all of this will work?
So definitely, I think those are very good prescriptions and description of things that we need to do. As I said when I began, when you talk about eradicating poverty, it's not one particular system or one particular program that can resolve this. I like that they bring up the mindset, because sometimes poverty, like I said, is multidimensional. So when you think about poverty, it's not just about me as a person having money, okay? It goes beyond that. What is my level of education? What is my level of participation in society? What can I do? And apart from that, that's at an individual level. The issue is around systems. So systems are very important, and I like that that was brought up in this particular contribution. So systems around how do we handle corruption, systems around how do you implement pro-poor programs, how do you implement social investment. So already we see government coming up, for instance, with the National Social Register. So this is a register of all the poor in the country. At the moment, it's still not very widespread. It's being spread out, but that's an opportunity to start something. So from there, we've seen countries like Rwanda, for instance, that has a register that covers everyone. When we are focusing on programs, that helps us to target. And that is some of the work that we do Save the Children. We support, of course, from the FCDO, is really to support those systems to be strengthened. At the end of the day, it's not just about providing cash or providing opportunities. It's also about ensuring there is strong accountability, there's transparency, there's good governance. So I think I like that, that contribution, and I think definitely those are some of the things that we should focus on going forward. Of course, making allocations to financing, but financing is not enough. Even if you have all the money in the world, if you do not have the systems, this will not happen. But even if you have the systems, if these systems are not respected, they're corrupt and there's no transparency, still your results will be affected. So it's important as we move forward to continue thinking about how those things come together to really support poverty eradication.
Thank you so much, Sheila Nkunika, Senior Special Protection Specialist, Save the Children International, Nigeria. Thank you for sharing this morning with us.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be part of this discussion.
Thank you. All right, so as we're back in a moment, to stay with us.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Nigeria, like many other countries across the world, wasn't spared from the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. To overcome this challenge, countries have been advised to keep testing, treating, and isolating to reduce infections. Many governments have started reopening their borders. Some opened and had to reshut. But following the relaxation of measures and border restrictions, there are fears of increase in the number of infections. Nigeria's international borders reopened on September the 5th. And this came months after international and land borders were shut down in March to reduce the spread of the COVID-19. So what is Nigeria's status at the moment? To look at this with us, it's my pleasure to welcome both of whom are joining us from Abuja. Yahaya Disu, who is head, Risk Communication Division, Nigeria Center for Disease Control. Good morning. As well as Professor Alashle Abimiku, Executive Director, Institute of Human Virology. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Now, let me start from my own little perspective. It seems to me that Nigerians believe that the wind that's carrying the virus has blown away. I don't see a lot of people wearing masks anymore. The hand-washing thing doesn't seem to be going on like it used to, and the sanitizer thing as well doesn't seem to be going on like it used to. Prof, do you get that distinct feeling as well?
Absolutely. One tends to get that feeling, especially when you travel across to the rural areas. And that's not unusual. Usually when a population is faced with a new challenge, everybody, you know, fear of the unknown, you do exactly what you're told. And then as you kind of get a handle on it and you begin to understand the steps that you take, then there's complacency. Then in addition to that, you find a virus that it's certainly within the African continent has not been as devastating as the rest of the world. One wouldn't have said that about Ebola, right? Because the devastation is right there in front of you, and it doesn't matter whether it's just one or two people infected. Just the way the virus just completely busts your organs, blood flowing, people dying. It's not a joke. But we are finding a number of individuals that are surviving COVID infection and living well. So as we begin to know how to handle it, and as we begin to see people who have had it and overcome it, that complacency comes in. But we as a country really cannot let our guard down, especially as you begin to see second waves and even third waves in other countries. But I must say Africa has been really fortunate, but we cannot stop really promoting all of these measures that have saved us or that has kind of limited the spread in our continent. We've got to continue to do that. It's a hard thing to do because we don't see the devastation, but we really do not have any choice.
Disu, altogether, I think we haven't had more than 65,000 cases in Nigeria. And that number seems small compared to the figures we hear from other countries. And what do you think is responsible for this? Is it that we're not testing enough?
You know, at the beginning of the pandemic, there were a lot of people that were saying that about Africa, including people like me as well, that we're not testing enough and, you know, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. But we've really had, what, about 8 months at least, at minimum, to deal with this virus. We know within the country, Nigeria, from about 3 to 4 or 5 laboratories that were testing earlier, and now we have over 50 laboratories that are tested. All of the states have the capability. So we know for a fact that there is a lot more testing going on. We also know that one thing is to test. Yes, testing allows you to see what is in your population, but the other indicator is also the number of people that are coming in sick, right, at the isolation wards and at the hospitals. Even that has increased. And more recently, the University of Maryland, Baltimore, in collaboration with the government of Nigeria and the Centers for Disease Control in Nigeria, did a population-based survey, seroprevalence survey, to see if we go into the population and test a group of individuals rather than wait for those that are sick to come to us, what do we see generally? And the data is supporting the limited amount of spread that the country is experiencing. So I know that certainly our testing capability have increased, but to a certain extent, I think what we're seeing is real, because even in the cases, we're not seeing as many as you see in the rest of the world. Prof, if you remember,
Prof, thank you.
President.
Okay, Prof, thank you so much. Even though that question was actually directed to Mr. Disu, but Mr. Disu, we'd like to hear from you in a moment. We'll just take a few seconds and join our colleague who's at the panel of inquiry here in Lagos, looking at the police brutality and other issues that have happened in the last one with Victoria Idowu. Just to give us an update, what's the situation at the panel today?
Thank you, Nyota. Presently, it's still a very, cool morning. Not so much is happening yet. It's a few minutes to 11. We're told that the panel will sit at 11. So far, about 33 petitions have been received by the panel, and today on its own, we're going to have 4 petitions that will be heard today. So far, about 2 or 3 of those petitioners are already in the panel, waiting for the panel to start the sitting. The hall is a bit scanty compared to the previous days. Towards my left-hand side, the secretariats are doing their final checks and final work for the day's job. We're waiting for the panel to come in a few minutes. We expect that in about 10 minutes. That's the situation from the Lagos Court of Arbitration. Thank you, Nyota.
Thank you very much, Victoria. We would stay in touch with you and keep updating our viewers as regards the situation at the Lagos State Panel of Inquiry. They are this panel sitting across the country looking at issues around police brutality and the protests that happened in the course of the previous weeks. But let's come back into the studio, the Sunrise studio, and continue this conversation. Mr. Disu, the question that Lara asked had to do with how much of testing, Nigeria has a little below 65,000 confirmed cases, and many of them discharged, over 1,000 dead. That she was asking if this number, as small as it is, can be tied to the fact that we're not testing enough. Yes, Prof has talked about the fact that we need to do more, ramp up the testing capabilities, and NCDC has told us that the testing capabilities have been ramped up and they're still continuously being ramped up. The question is, why are numbers this small? Is that the fact, or because we're not having the people coming for testing?
Thank you for that question. The reality is we still have the cases around the country, and then the number we're reporting may be below the reality. And the reason is what the Prof has just said. We are not testing enough. And to test enough requires 3 factors. 1, the availability of the facilities. Then 2, and the people who show the symptoms and that may be COVID-19 itself or other diseases. And then 3, there should be that awareness and the need for people to come out to do the test. So, but the facilities are available now. We have them in all the states in the country. Over 100 laboratories in our network doing the testing. At the same time, we are creating awareness at the state level. The states have really done a lot. In addition to the laboratories, they've created sample collection sites in almost all the LGAs and in some of the states. And then some states are responding, some states are still preparing. And there are resources deployed by Presidential Task Force and also by NCDC to support the response at the state level, and the state themselves are complementing this. So what we need to do is to continue to tell them. But what is more important is to create awareness about it so that those who show symptoms, because what we're doing is we're using a targeted approach. We're not just screening or testing just everybody, but those who show symptoms or who are contact of the confirmed cases, because the resources we have to also ensure that we efficiently manage our resources. So that is what we have to do. But the laboratories are there, the reagents are there in all the states, and the sample collection sites are also available, and it's just for people to come to do the test. Some people, it may be that they don't know where these sites are, so the states need to do more in terms of announcing where they are located. If you go to website of Nigeria Center for Disease Control, they publish where we have these laboratories and where we may be able to collect these samples for many of the states. So I think what we need to do is to continue to talk, and just like the media too, they are critical stakeholders in this regard in terms of awareness creation. We also use the avenue of community engagement platforms that we have to use the existing structure, National Orientation Agency, the National Primary Care Development Agency, working with the State Primary Care Board and the local government to ensure that they create awareness. And then when there are other programs like immunization campaign or whatever public health programs they are doing in the community, this opportunity to also remind people that people who show symptoms should go out there to do the test. This is important now when we are having spikes in other countries, because as we are entering this season, and then our borders in terms of international travel have opened, and then it means that the risk of the cases coming into the country is still there. Even though Nigeria has put measures in place to ensure that those who come into the country are properly screened, and then at least they show negative result that 96 hours before they board. And when they come to Nigeria, and they are also expected to stay for 7 days at home, and then also do the second test, which they will have paid for before they leave the country of departure. And this actually seems to be working. And then so that's at least, I mean, to limit the chances of these cases coming into the country. Even those people are also follow up to monitor them, to remind them of what they need to do.
So you mentioned something here about the testing centers and areas where they can collect the samples spread across the country, where you said something, people just need to come. What is stopping the people from coming? This is not the first time that I've heard the NCDC talk about people coming to the centers. Not enough people are willing to come to the centers for the testing or to collect for sample collection. Why are people not responding?
Actually, a few months back, we conducted a perception survey, and then to understand the perception of threat and efficacy. And then the perception was low as at June, July, when we conducted this. And that was when we were almost at the peak of this transmission in the country. And then what really happened is probably fatigue. People kept hearing about this. And then the reality, the way they perceive the reality, the severity of this disease is not as what they expected in the beginning. And then the reason for that is because of our population. We have youth population, and the majority of the people that have it shows that the ages between 31 and 40 years. And then we still have other younger age groups that have this disease. But many of them have the symptoms. They are very mild, but you see some who progress to severity and death. And this include people who are above 50 years, and then people who have other conditions, comorbidities. And then compared to Western world, and then this proportion of people are very few. And that is the reason, and then the people now feel that, oh, after all, this thing cannot really affect us. Maybe what we have is malaria. And the confusion between malaria and COVID-19 is COVID-19 shows the same symptoms with malaria. And then the only way you can know this is COVID-19 is by going for testing, especially where you know you are from a place where you have high transmission, or where you have been in contact with a confirmed case. And then that means that you should suspect that this could be COVID-19. And so the major issue here is we just need to continue to talk to people to know that the risk is there. Even though if they are young, they think they are not vulnerable, but they have their loved ones who are elderly, people who may be having hypertension, diabetes, who are closer to them, who when they get this may have significant impact on them. And then some of them have lost their lives in this regard. So we need to continue to remind them, because they have one or two things to do with them to benefit from them. And then sometimes they are also caregivers of these people. They are our parents, they are our uncles, they are our brothers. Sometimes they are our teachers, and they are our pastors, wherever we go. So we just need to create that risk perception, that implication of us not complying with the protocols. And it's not just the testing people are not doing. You can see they don't wear face masks anymore, and people don't even care to wash their hands. And it's still pointing out to the fact that the perception of risk is low. But we won't stop. We need to continue to engage people. And the strategy that we think we need to do, which is what we're already doing, is community engagement. and then to use a bottom-top approach to let people themselves review their life and be stakeholders in decision-making, understand how this disease is transmitted in their own context, and what can they do with the local resources that they have, and local technology, and then local ideas, and see how they can come up with an idea of how to prevent this. It is only community that can end epidemic or pandemic. It is not government. Government can only provide direction, resources, policy, strategy, but it is the people themselves. But with the way we are going, if we refuse to obey the protocols, as long as we are having transmission around the world, and it's a global village, people come in and go out of Nigeria, then the risk of it coming in is still there. And we are not saying that people, even after people have done their second test, they are coming with negative results. We still have very few of them. Within 7 days, we still turn out positive, although there are very few. And this way, we learn from our experience before the lockdown, when we just allow people, when they come into the country, without testing them, though we don't even have enough resources to do testing then. And these same people keep going around. That's where we have community transmission we have today. And then now we have learned from that by ensuring that they do the test before they come in. When they come in again, they do their test day 7. That way, the contribution of that to the existing burden is very minimal. And we can quickly follow up with them and make sure that they get the appropriate care so that they don't show any severity or cause further transmission in the community. Right, so the idea is we continue to remind people.
I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. You spoke earlier about the arrival protocols. What about the protocol for those who want to leave the country, those who want to travel?
As their strategies. Now, Nigeria's strategy, learning from our experience, PTF decided that we don't want to repeat what happened in March. And that was why PTF decided that they need to test people who are coming into the country. Now, when people are going out, the country you are going to determines their own criteria. And they are the one that will tell you whether they want people to do tests or not. And then we cannot just be testing everybody that is going out. You know how many Nigerians that travel out to different countries? So when you get to that country, they have their own protocols. So we didn't mandate people who are traveling out to do tests. Those who go to do it, they just do it for their own sake in case they get to the country and the country is requesting for the test results. It's just like yellow fever card. And there are some countries that require you to have yellow fever cards when you are coming to their country, like South Africa. Then there are countries like United States that don't require you to bring in, show your yellow fever card when you are coming in, to show evidence that you are vaccinated with yellow fever. So different countries have their own protocols. Nigeria does not focus on people who are leaving Nigeria because that does not give us any risk. But over time, we continue to review these protocols. When they get to that level where they feel they need to test people that need to go out, then they will take that decision if data or evidence suggests that.
Okay, Prof. Go ahead. Professor Abimiku, this matter of testing and all of that brings to mind the question of data collection and data management. While we're still looking at how to get data from the rural communities, the border communities, put it all together, one begins to think about also system thinking. Are the citizens, especially when it comes to going to get tested, health issues, has the thinking in society generally been elevated to the point where you can say there's system thinking and everybody's concerned about gathering this data and ensuring that that data is accurate?
Yeah, so before I go into the data part, I do need to mention that as far as I know, just to be clear, the testing that still happens in Nigeria is symptomatic testing. So when you ask the questions, we have the centers to collect the specimens and get tested. Why are people not going? It's because based on what NCDC has put out there and the the facility that is, the resources that is available, they're still focusing on symptomatic testing and contact tracing. So it's not as if I have a cold today and I'm suspecting I could go, or for the heck of it, somebody is around and I want to go and get tested, I can get tested. It's still really limited, and like my colleague from NCDC said, it's a targeted testing. So that really needs to be clear. I think if you open it up to everyone, you will find a lot of people going and probably overcrowded. But to your question about setting up the systems, especially that will collect accurate data that the country can continue to depend on, and even during this pandemic be able to see the trajectory of the spread. It's a really important issue, and I am sure that my colleague from NCDC would have more to add into that. But one thing that NCDC has done, and the government of Nigeria has done more systematically, is that they've worked with the U.S. government. Really, the CDC and the USAID are the key partners that I know of to build a system that collects reliable data that is not just targeting one disease. So that's something that the leadership, the health leadership in the country wanted to emphasize, that if we have a data system that is set up in the country, it should be available for whatever disease we really do want to monitor. So for instance, if you go to the NCDC website today, you get data on all parts of the country. And it's because they've really taken the time to put out those systems that collect data and have and work with the states to also have like data entry clerks, statisticians, and individuals that really clean up your data, so that what comes back to the central point is a data that is reliable, but that also can be segregated to the state, to the local government. I think that one of the things that Nigeria did and surprised the rest of the world globally in 2018 is the population-based AIDS impact study. So as you know, we've been talking about HIV. We've been saying that the seroprevalence in the country is about 5%, it's about 10%. And nobody really knew, because we were working with what we call convenient sampling. So samples that come in from the hospital, from ANC clinic, periodically we tested across the country to find out the prevalence of HIV. But what Nigeria did in 2018 with funding from the US government is to go to selected houses. So just like you do your census, and test individuals within that household. So it's unbiased, it's across the country, and it gave us a good picture of the prevalence of HIV that we have in the country. And in fact, we came out, Nigeria came out with the figures that is much less than has been presented. But more importantly, it was also able to show what we call hotspots. So you could see the different clusters within the country where we still have to put in significantly more effort to try and end the HIV epidemic. Now, all of that systems that have been put together to collect that data from different parts of the country is available, and in fact, NCDC is using it to whether to look at Lassa, whether to look at yellow fever, whether to address COVID. So, you know, to address your question about system, I think that's the direction Nigeria is going, that they establish one reliable, robust system that will be able to act as a surveillance for the various diseases for the country, and even non-communicable diseases as well. So that data system is absolutely critical for the country to know where it is at any point in time.
Now, Prof, staying with you, there seems to be a race to find a vaccine for this virus. I mean, I think it was last week or something, Russia was putting out something, and America is setting some deadline for when theirs should be ready. You know, everybody is racing to find some kind of cure for this thing. Where do we stand in this race?
Well, we as a nation have always participated, certainly in some of the discussions that are going on. I know for a fact our Minister of Health has signed on with the solidarity vaccine effort that is being led by WHO, that Nigeria and its institution would be part and parcel of any effort towards finding an effective and reliable vaccine. The Institute of Human Virology, where I work, is a partner in this effort, and because what we have within the country is what we call clinical trial unit, where you are able
to go on a quick break, Prof. If you don't mind, please, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back and pick it up from that point. Please, do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Professor Abimike, we're talking about the question I asked before we went on that break had to do with the vaccine, and she wanted to know what's Nigeria's position at this point in time, at what our status as regards the vaccine.
And I was just saying that Nigeria has actually signed on in terms of contributing to finding an effective vaccine through the solidarity vaccine effort. And that might mean a number of things. It might mean that you are contributing to some of the discussions in designing the vaccine. You are contributing to the testing of the vaccines. You are contributing to the analysis of the vaccine. Now it's a global village, like my colleague said, and it's not necessary for you to start from the laboratory to the field to show that you are part and parcel of this global challenge. So I know that Nigeria is participating, and I was sharing the fact that the Institute of Human Virology is part of the site that would be testing any vaccine that comes into the country, because we have the clinical trial unit, which allows the unbiased testing. NAFDAC is part of that, NIMA is also part of that, and a number of institutions within the country. So there's no doubt that we are at the table and we are contributing as well. As far as the status, you know, I think there are two versions. There's the political versions, where people are taking the goalpost of having an effective vaccine to coincide with their political gains. And we see that in the US government, and we see that in Russia and China, for instance. And where there is this race, but is linked with politics. That's not what we need for an effective vaccine. What we need for an effective vaccine is what the scientists are telling us, in which case right now there are a number of vaccines, probably 3 are the front runners by Moderna and BioNTech and Imperial College in London. The other 2 are in the US and Germany, that are really at the forefront. They are in the phase of the phase 3 testing. And a number of those individuals have the intention of testing about 25 to 30 people. By mid of next year, we probably will have an indication of an effective vaccine. But Nigeria is certainly on the table and contributing to some of the knowledge. Some of the knowledge also comes in looking at the immune response that people are infected mounting, and whether that is protecting other individuals. Nigeria is already part, and certainly our institute is part of the global effort towards that, and we're contributing results. So I think we are right in the midst of it, and when we get an effective vaccine, we're certain that it's good for our population as well.
Adding to that, I think we should also be looking at the demand side. Mm-hmm. So by the time the vaccine gets to Nigeria, are people going to accept it? Who should be the target? Because we still don't know what quantity will come in. Should we prioritize the vulnerables? Mm-hmm. And those are the conversations we should be having now. And considering the experience we've had about vaccination in the past, this is time to start engaging stakeholders when it comes to vaccine acceptability, hesitancy, to see how to leverage on the existing structures. We already have an institution, National Primary Care Development Agency, who is in charge of that in Nigeria, and then they work with polio structures, whether in the north or in the south, bringing religious leaders together. These are stakeholders that have roles to play in terms of how people are going to accept this vaccine. Because we are not immune to the misinformation and the controversy that is going around the vaccination. So the earlier we start having this conversation, so Nigerians will be properly educated so that they can take informed decision when it is time to take these vaccines. I think that effort is also, the planning for that is also ongoing in the country.
It's a good thing that you stepped in, Mr. Adisi, to talk about this planning citizen engagement. You remember there was a time there was a vaccine that was being tested in some parts of the country, and at the end of the day there was a court case that went on for quite a while. Some lives were lost in that kind of situation. That led to some level of apathy where people, whenever they hear vaccine, some parents will say, no, I don't want to see you, I don't want to hear anything, don't touch my child. And indeed, I had a situation where the school authorities had to call me to say, we want to give your child this vaccine, is it okay with you? I had to say, hold on, what's the name of the vaccine? I went ahead to do my own checks before I said, okay, go ahead and do that. How much of that engagement is really, not on paper, really going on?
We already have a structure we use for polio eradication, which is our traditional institutions, religious institutions. It's all about trust, and it's all about the fact science is bringing out. So once science has concluded their own, and they have said this is, because for the trials, there are things they look at. They look at efficacy and they look at safety. And once it's within the safety margin that is acceptable, and then we already know the limitations, and then people who are likely to develop complications to get this vaccine. Those are the things the trials will tell us, so that to exclude those people from getting the vaccine. And I know that by the time science tells us that it is safe, it is really safe. But the issue about interpretation of science findings is what really matters now, because you cannot rule out the experience of the people when it comes to interpretation of science reports. But conversation, understanding, engagement is what we really need. And we need to be transparent about this for people to buy into this. Our religious leaders, they have roles to play. The media have roles to play, because how the media also shape the stories, and then how they are able to ensure that this conversation goes in a way that everybody has make contribution to this. They share their experience. Once it is transparent and everybody buys into this, and I'm sure that the degree of acceptability or acceptance is going to rise. And once some people start taking it, they see the effect, that you will see other people that will say, oh, yes, after all, it's not bad, and let them take this vaccine. There will be always one issue or the other, but once we have the committee in place to also address such concerns as they arise, and then we will be able to win the battle.
But Professor Abimeku, I'll still take you back to that matter of citizen engagement beyond the vaccines. We talked earlier, we talked about the number of people wearing the face mask, how people are no longer washing their hands as they used to. Indeed, the number of people going to shops to buy the hand sanitizers or even making them has also dropped. Now, if we have that kind of thing where the participation in the protocols, safety protocols appear to be dropping, what's the guarantee that participation in the vaccine when it comes in would even rise?
No, absolutely. That's a very key issue, and my colleague over here has really hammered on the importance of engagement. And your question is also very key, because we don't wait to engage when we have the vaccine. The engagement should be happening now. And the second thing is that we've got to remember that we've got real experience in Nigeria on dealing with difficulties of vaccines. You mentioned the Pfizer study that had to be closed down because things were not done right. There's a lot Nigeria learned from that. We talk about the polio eradication and everything that had to be done with the community to really engage and educate them on that. We have all of that wealth of knowledge. You talk about HIV and the experimental vaccines and how NACA was working with the community to just get them to accept all of that. It's all of this experience must come to bear. And we really should be working right now with an expectation of a vaccine by mid next year. But to your point, it's absolutely critical that as we go out and talk about vaccines by nature, you need time to really get going. So it's not the fact that you get a vaccination today, you automatically become protected. So one of the things that we must be teaching our population is that the issue of wearing masks, the issue of hand washing and all of that, we must continue until we get to the point where we've gotten this virus to such minimal level that our immune system can deal with it. So, you know, the issues around wearing masks, the issue around washing, honestly, I know that at a certain time, people get tired, but the alternative is a lockdown, like we're seeing in the Western world now. You're not doing all of this washing of hands and wearing of masks. You want to go out, you want to have summer, but what has happened is there's a spike, and now you're going back to lockdown. So we have to continue to teach our folks that wearing masks and washing of hands, even when we have a vaccine, is absolutely critical. And if we would just collectively be responsible for that brief period of time, we will be able to bring this virus to the barest minimum that our immune system can take over. But it's a storyline, it's an engagement that should start now and that should continue even during vaccination.
Mr. Disu, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, well, there are those who say has his work cut out for them. The recent protest also affected some of the test and data collection centers. What's the situation like in recouping and getting back on track? Okay. Our data suggested that in the week 43, that was the last week we just concluded, the testing rate really came down because of the mass protest across the country. And then, but I think it should have improved now by the time that was week 43, week 42 was 2 weeks ago. And then they just this concluded week because when things calmed down, and then we hope to see improvement by Monday when they analyze the data and then they bring it out. And then because the states have actually made significant efforts in setting up sample collection sites in the LGAs, bringing it closer to the rural areas, and then making sure that they provide logistics for transportation, and also using reporting system to make sure that we deliver results promptly to people. And that's been piloted in Abuja, and then now it's been scaled up to other states. So issue of delay in getting results will soon be a thing of the past. But we're building the ship as we are sailing it. And I think that is where we are with testing. And with things are coming down now, protest, and then we continue to drive demand creation for testing, and we hope more people will come out and utilize these services that the states are setting up. For those states that have not yet done this, we're encouraging them because they have resources, support for federal government. And World Bank through NCDC gave them 100 million naira about a month ago towards this, and they've also gotten another 1 billion naira from Presidential Task Force to support the response in the state. And they develop plan towards this, and then the only thing is we want people to leverage on this, take advantage of this to come out and then do this testing. We need to encourage our neighbors. This is the time for us to all take responsibility at all levels, at individual level, at family level, at community level, at public policy making level, even public and private sectors, they are all included, to ensure that we all do our part so that we can all combat COVID-19
transmission in the country.
Very much, Mr. Yaya Disu, Head Risk Communication Division of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, as well as Professor Alashle Abimiku, Executive Director, Institute of Virology, both of whom joined us from our studio in Abuja. Thank you very much for coming to bring us up to speed about our status regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Sunrise will be back very, very shortly with the home stretch. See you in just a bit.
Okay, Buchi Franklin, an actor and OAP. Now, what's OAP? On-air personality. He's a graduate of theatre arts from the University of Abuja. In 2015, he was nominated Best Lead Actor, Best Upcoming Actor at the annual Africa Film and Music Festival. He's featured in several movies and television series, including Tinsel, Knockout Blessing, and others. After school, he ventured into the world of presentation, making his first appearance on air as a presenter at the multi-mesh broadcasting company, owners of Love FM 104.5. He's one of their first OAPs, and he's co-anchored the morning show, and then went on and on and on and on to do different things. He was one of those people who actually is practicing what he studied. So we should, we don't have a bell, so we should clap for him, right?
For a change.
For a change.
We have.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, Buchi Franklin.
Thank you so much.
That is not how to clap.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, 1, 2, go.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Same here, man.
Coach.
I didn't know he was a coach. Okay, coach.
Well,
Coach, how are you?
That's his role in Tinsel.
I'm great.
Okay, so from OAP, can I ask you a very nice question?
Oh my God, that's nothing nice about that question right now. Go ahead, sir.
On live TV. Can we see your eyes?
Oh, my eyes. Okay, sure. That's
yeah.
I hope you can see because they're really small.
Now I recognize you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Fine boy, no pimples.
Oh, wow. No, there's a pimple somewhere.
Oh, okay. Damn that. Excuse my French.
Well,
that
darn that.
So, Buchi, how are you?
I'm great. It's really, really exciting to be here. You know, I always watch you guys on TV, and this for me is my first. So, yeah, it's good to meet you. So I work with her.
And it's nice to be on the other side, right?
Yeah, yes.
Now we are asking the questions, not you.
Yes. I'll get used to that now.
So please, how quickly will it take you to get used to it? Because I'm about to fire one.
Well, 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Good. So what's it like? What do you feel? What's it like being a star?
A star.
Don't tell me you don't know.
Well, I don't.
I thought you were going to ask him, what's that?
I swear, star. I mean, I get what you mean, but I don't. I see myself.
Okay, let's put it this way.
I mean, simple.
Do you ever get used to that?
It's you. Yeah. I saw you. It comes with the job.
Yeah.
You know, so Nigerians are very.
It's normal.
Yeah, really nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's normal. We're excited.
It's a normal way of life.
It is. Humbling.
Yeah.
Very, very. That they see what we do and appreciate it, you know,
Fantastic.
even with everything going on. So, you know, it's a blessing.
So
really
when you take that script and you look through it, what's the picture in your head? Delivering the lines or getting someone who's going to see that movie or whatever it is you're going to fall in love with your character?
I don't know if you can see my eyes. I always get emotional when I'm being asked this question because for me, this is my form of evangelism. You know, my source is God. That's where I get my everything from, you know. So I look forward to educating, informing, entertaining my audience, you know, to the best of my capability. So it's always mind-blowing for me. I get excited inside of me when I get a script and a character that I'm in love with, you know, because I have to fall in love with the character first before anything, no matter the price. Yeah, I said so. You know, you have to be in love with the character first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went from being an OAP
Yes, ma'am.
to being an actor.
Yes, ma'am.
How did that happen? Walk us through that.
Studied theater arts in the University of Abuja. Got out of school, been taking care of myself, paying my bills, and a friend ringed me and said, yo, you've got a great voice. You can do radio. I know that's not all it takes to be a broadcaster, but he said that and hooked me up with Crowder FM 104.5, got bought over by Multi-Mesh Broadcasting Company and became Love FM. So I did an internship for a couple of months, and the rest is history.
Voila.
You know? Yeah.
No, you haven't got into acting yet.
No.
I want to know how you left that and went into acting.
I started, acting has always been, I started from church, so it's always been, you know, everything for me.
Yeah.
So,
Children of God.
because
the church rats.
Pastor Neota.
No. That's for the flock. The flock. Remember, there's a flock somewhere.
Oh, wow.
The flock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, flock. Anyway, I used to live in Abuja. I spent 10 years in Abuja. So working my way around the broadcasting industry in Abuja wasn't a hassle because I had a few friends. And so they hooked me up with the people in Crowder FM. I did internship for a couple of months that I work in. And I loved every minute working with Crowder FM 104.5, now Love FM. You know, they taught me a lot. And yes, they did actually, because it helped me, you know, in my acting career, you know, playing with my voice and all of that. Yeah.
So how did the acting come about?
So my friend told me about a reality TV show.
Please.
Yeah.
You know, you said, my friend told me about the radio thing, the voice.
Yeah.
My friend told me about the acting.
Yeah.
Can I meet some of these friends?
Well, they're really sweet. I have amazing people around me.
So, okay, this public service announcement. I'm changing all my friends. I mean, why would you tell me about... Are you listening to this? Such good friends.
You do have good friends. They have been useless? Is that what you were saying? Is that what you were saying? To them, that they have been useless to you?
No. I didn't say I have good friends. I said, why do you tell me about these
things?
Yes, acting, voicing. You know, they tell me about other things, but you're telling me about some... So, what about the movie?
Juicy stuff.
Some juicy stuff, like the acting thing. I like that.
Well, anyway, so she called me up, Sarah Lawal, said I should enroll in this the Spirited Actor reality TV show that was meant to take 5 Nigerians to the US for training. And packed my bags, hopped on a plane, didn't know where I was going to stay. Came to Lagos to get it. Didn't come to Lagos to join the movie industry here. Was ready to take off.
Hollywood here.
But God had better plans. So did that, emerged top 5, you know, was meant to go to the US, and God said, you're going to have to meet Ayo Makum, AY, you know, and so that didn't work. So I stayed back in Lagos, you know, head down, praying, oh God, why, and all that. And she called me again and said, yo, AY is doing a sitcom, go for it. I'm like, no, I'm not here to do sitcom, sis. Method. I didn't know what I was saying then. so I went for it and fell in love with AY, and of course he did the same, and we did AY's Crib in 2013, season 1 of it. So that's how I stayed back in Lagos. And to God be the glory, here I am now with you beautiful people.
A guy packs up his bags from Abuja and is looking to go to
the US.
The abroad, as they say.
To go to the abroad.
And he ends up in Lagos.
Yeah.
And he's very happy about it.
Oh, yeah.
And he's okay with it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There are very few young people like you know. Because many young people, their eyes are just, I just got to get out of this place, man. I just got to get out of this place.
I mean, we're not perfect, you know. Yes, you want your goals and dreams to come to pass, but the big man has better plans for you.
Sure.
Always.
You know,
sure.
in all that you've been saying, you've consistently used God said, the big man.
Yeah.
You've consistently used it. So one bound to say that you're a person of faith.
Yes,
I hold your faith very seriously.
Yeah.
How does that tie into what you do? Because there are some scenes in acting that someone will say, that doesn't go with his faith.
Right.
How can you tell me that person's a person of faith and he's having to do that?
I'm entertaining you. Don't take it too serious, you know. So, I mean, it's a gift. It's a gift. So, and like I said earlier, my source is God. So, this is my form of evangelism, right? I mean, let's be real right now. Nigeria, Lagos isn't really in a happy place, sort of.
Nigeria isn't in a happy place.
Ooh, my goodness. But thank God for the likes of great musicians, great entertainers, comedians, actors, you know, creative minds, basically, you know, doing their best to try and quail down minds so that people don't go crazy, you know. So that's that for me. I'm really big on doing my best to make everything around me positive, happy. That's why we're here. We're here to just love each other.
Okay.
You know, the best that we can.
We'll just hold your thoughts, hold your horses.
Okay.
We'll dash off to where our colleague Victoria Ido is at the judicial panel of inquiry somewhere in Lekki to let us know what the situation is, and we'll come back to this conversation. So that's the judicial panel of inquiry sitting in the Lekki area, looking at the issues of police brutality and the protests, the fallout of the protests that happened in the last couple of weeks. Their terms of reference were quite minimal, but they've been expanded to encompass everything that's happened in the last 1 month or thereabout and beyond that. So far, they sat on Tuesday, they sat yesterday, and they're sitting again today. They sit on Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday, and to look at different things. Yesterday, when they sat, they also went to the Lekki Toll Plaza to look at the environment and see what is on ground. There, they discovered some bullet casings on the floor there, and quite a number of things that they've come up with. At the end of the day, when they are done, their reports to be handed over to
the governor.
So we'll hand over to the chairman now.
17, Mr. Okwechuku Obiechina and another against Commissioner of Police and 3 others of His Lordship MD Idris, dated 23rd October 2017, is admitted and marked Exhibit A. Judgment in appeal CA/L/178 of 2018, COP and others against Mr. Obiechina and another, dated 20th March 2020, is hereby admitted and marked Exhibit B. Yes, any more? That's the end of your case. Which money?
The 50,000 naira they withdrew. They took it from you. And we also bailed ourselves. When they released us, we bailed ourselves with 250,000. 5150 for the bail.
Mr. Obechina, you heard what Mrs. Obechina has given evidence of. You want to abide by our evidence, or you have anything to add so that we don't repeat this in our records? She said it, or you want to adopt her testimony?
About 11 o'clock this morning, and a couple was called, husband and wife were called up with their petition. The lady, Mrs. Obechina, had stated in her testimony how she was arrested and in SARS custody for about 22 days. She was arrested from her school and taken to the SARS office in the Ikeja area F and was there for 22 days. She also said that her husband, who came to bail her from their from SARS office, was also arrested alongside with him, and they were put in different cells. She said in the process she was 2.5 months pregnant. She lost the pregnancy during that period. She also stated that her 5-year-old child was left with no care because herself and her husband were arrested. They gave them an opportunity to make one phone call, and that phone call she made to her friend and their pastor. Some weeks later, the husband again was arrested and taken to where she did not know. She couldn't get any information. She was pregnant again at that time. She lost the second pregnancy. She narrated her ordeal to the panel and tendered in evidence the judgment that was given after the matter was taken to court. There is an award of 2 million naira that she's supposed to have received, but so far she hasn't gotten anything. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our correspondent Victoria Idowu there at the panel sitting in the Lekki area of Lagos.
Yeah.
You're an actor.
Yes.
The things that happened in the previous week, some have called them all manner of things, but if it were a movie, you were part of a movie that's coming out real soon, like the Ahana movie.
Yeah.
If it were a movie, it would be something like Ahana.
Yes.
Who broke out, it's like a protest.
Yeah.
Tell us about that movie.
Whew.
I mean, God, I have seen the old one. Yeah, with this new one.
I'm sorry, I was watching the
sitting.
Yeah, the sitting, and it's really disturbing. Rattlesnake. Thank God for Rattlesnake. That's what we need right now. You know that that project. Believe me, this show isn't enough. I don't have enough time to tell you guys what your brothers and sisters, your sons and daughters
have put together.
Yeah, have put together. It's mind blowing. Having to create during this period, it was I can only say it was God, you know. So it's a remake. It's not a sequel.
Okay.
Right. So you have Ramsey Noah, the director. Yes, I put a smile on my face. And I thank God for him. He's an actor's director, so he made it really, really easy for all of us, all the actors, both young and old, you know, to be able to display their characters. Now, this story, of course, is about a young boy trying to make ends meet
Was that Nengi?
Yes, it is Nengi. Yes, it is. Yeah, there's a deep story to that, but I will not say it here.
Okay.
Yeah, so you just need to watch the film when it comes out November 13th. So, like I was saying, basically it's a story about a young man that wants to make money for himself and his family members, you know, make something good about himself, but along the line gets crossed by a lot of obstacles. Because if I open my mouth and say anything, that's the whole film. That's the whole film. So, yeah, a lot of it.
Okay.
So we shot in Nigeria and South Africa. We were blessed with the best. I'm not gassing you guys out like this. We had the best. The best. So this for me is the biggest film of the century. I'm not because I'm on it.
The century.
I'm telling you.
Well, the century is just started.
I really don't care, love. It's the biggest. It's the biggest. Woo! I'm finding it difficult. I hope the people that I'm working with now won't see this. I'm finding it difficult to unlearn Nze, unlearn Ahana, unlearn Rattlesnake, because it has become a part of me. It's a movement. It's not just entertainment anymore. You know, we shot this film not knowing that somebody will let army officers shoot at unarmed, you know, protesters. And there's a scene there, or rather, there's a monologue that Ahana carries out in the film, and I'm just thinking and talking about it alone has got me, you know, a bit shaky, because we didn't know, like nobody expected this, man, I don't know what to call it, but this bad air that happened weeks back, you know. So it was crazy, because we're talking about, oh, this movie is meant to come out November 13th, and some clowns decided to act the fool, you know, and while we were talking, we remembered the monologue that Ahana, that's Stan Nze, fantastic actor, by the way, did in the film, you know. And
well, I know him.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, I know.
Oh, that's right. Stan, you're extremely famous. so yeah.
But he's got a beautiful voice.
I'm going to be a man about it. So Stan's voice, no, I love his voice. I can't hold it.
Stan's voice is
everything. Everything.
But do you know he's also a beautiful tenor? Ever heard him sing?
Oh, okay, you know Stan now.
Oh, he's sick. Well,
okay, so
kind of voice.
Okay, I'm jealous. He played my best friend.
He should sing.
That's my boy. You don't know him more than I do. He's a great actor. He's a great actor. He carried this film on his shoulder, and that's what every actor is meant to do. If you're watching, that's what you need to be doing, man. That boy is something else.
You did this film. It's more or less like moved you from, as you said in your words, moved you from one realm to another, and you're finding it difficult to even return to the other. Are you ready for the aftermath?
Oh, yes, I am. I'm an actor.
But you say you're finding it difficult even getting out of that sense.
Yeah, because it's like a relationship, you know, one that you put everything in. Every single thing.
Love story.
Yeah, it's a serious love story. I tell them every day, like, you guys have no clue how much I love you right now. Because Nze is the best friend of Ahana, you know. So I had to fall in love with Stan Nze the right way, of course. You know. And
you were. Which role did you play?
Nze.
Okay.
Yeah, his best friend.
Okay.
The troublemaker. That's the character, not me. So I had to literally, you know, find him, because prior to meeting Stan, we've never worked before. You know, so it was my first time, and I could notice that, oh, okay, I'm not really sure. That's what the vibe I was getting from him. I'm not really sure about Buchi, you know, we're here to work, let's just get it over with. But like he said in the video that he put out, the making of Ahana, he wasn't sure about me, you know, and I didn't know that, because I I was coming on strong,
So
just like the character. Exactly, you know, and the both of us, FI Wara Inclusive, Osasi Gadaro, Emeka Barocha, Odera, you know, the Amadas, we all became a family, you know. I'm so sad they're not here, by the way.
Okay, don't worry. You see, what we're going to do...
Were you at Lekki Tollgate, by the way?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, all right.
I wish I was.
Okay, so...
On that day, I wish I was.
Okay.
So what's going to happen is, we would see if it's possible. This set won't be enough to carry the Amadas.
We will have to.
We'll build you guys. Don't worry. Don't worry. But then we're ready.
Okay.
We'll let you know. But thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for
We're speaking with Buchi Franklin, an actor and an on-air personality. Should we still call you on-air personality? You're an actor.
An actor.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so Buchi Franklin is an actor, and he's so emotional about this movie that's coming out shortly.
Rattlesnake.
The Rattlesnake.
The
Ahana story.
Yes.
You need to stand by and watch it when it comes out.
November.
But thank you so much for coming in.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And that rounds up our show for today.
Yes, indeed.
I'm Alero Edu, wishing you all the best, and see you next month. And don't forget, be the best that you can be, and don't forget to wash your hands and use a sanitizer and wear your mask. The COVID-19 is still around, I promise you. Bye.
And as I was saying earlier, when the show started, remember that you can't be a team alone. It takes a team to survive. It takes the ground for the tree to put its roots in. So the tree and the ground are a team. If you think you can survive alone, you're dead. Teamwork is team life, is living all the same. So God bless you. Have yourself a beautiful rest of the day. I'm Neo Taigbe. Love your nation, love your neighbor, love yourself. Be all you can be. God bless you.
Bye.